Hello, my name is David Glenn. This is a tutorial of how to work with OpenSceneGraph. I'm concentrating on this tutorial on how to compile and then how to use Virtual Planet Builder. In order to use Virtual Planet Builder, of course, you've got to first be able to compile it onto your systems, because there's very few sources of actually getting any of these programs built. And for many of you who are working with the OpenSceneGraph already, this ought to be very fundamental to you, unless of course you haven't quite figured out all the ins and outs of getting especially Virtual Planet Builder built. And hopefully this will help you out getting that stuff done. And so the first thing I'm going to do is, here I am in my Windows 7 system. I wanted to point out a couple things that I already have pre-installed. I have CMake, which is a tool that I will use. This tool will help you build the make files that will be compatible with Windows Visual Studio. And for that, for the Visual Studio, what I'm going to be using in this exercise, I'm going to be using Microsoft Visual Studio 2010 Express. Now, as far as I know, 2010 Express is still available from Microsoft. This will also work with Visual Studio 2012 Express, but I started off for this exercise. I'm going to use 2010 because that's what I got handy. So, and let's see. Of course, to get the best instruction set and the most of the image tools into this stuff to begin with, to give it the best start, I'm going to start by making sure that I'm going to pre-install Gdl, and I have an example here of a proof, kind of proof of the pudding. I have Gdl installed. If you happen to have it installed and you want to test it, the best thing to do is go to just about any Gdl program, and I got Gdl Translate, and type in version dash version and hit enter, and of course you get the version of Gdl, which in this case I'm using 1.11.0, and the reason why I'm using 1.11.0 is it happens to work very well with as far as compiling programs into in Windows using Visual Studio 2012, even though I'm using 10 here. Some of you will be using 2012, so might as well use something that I know that will work with the majority of the distros of Visual Studio C++. And with that, oh, and while you're at it, don't forget to put in Python in for the for this exercise. I've got installed Python 2.7 I think it's 2.7.1. Yeah, right here. And that's basically for the Gdal. Some of the commands in Gdal do require Python. And Python's a nice program to have anyway. It's a great little scripting language. And maybe at some point in the future I will do a exercise in Python. And let's see if I can get, and I won't worry about that. That's one way to kill my Python. Orphan it. Okay, moving right along. So, assuming we have we've met all the prerequisites to what we need to compile OpenSceneGraph and Virtual Plant Builder. The next thing, of course, you're going to need is the distributions for each one of the programs, and they come in compressed zip format that you can download. There's many ways that you can download the source for both OpenSceneGraph and Virtual Plant Builder. There's a I think I used BitHub for this, and was able to download a set of zipped versions of what happened to be on there, so I didn't have to go use any fancy FTP program, and I just got some handy GIFs here. I got version 3.2.0, and I'm sure they've moved on to more fancier versions, but as I said before, this is one that I know works. And about the this here is about the only version of Virtual Plant Builder of these two sets that I grabbed from the master set. The master set, I think, is working off of version I think it's 0.11 of Virtual Plant Builder. As far as I know, there is no release of Virtual Plant Builder. So we'll start by opening these things up, and I happen to have the directory of which I'm going to use, and I'm going to put it under my documents directory. And it also happens to be the same directory which I also have my Gdl include in libraries at, and this is of course for this is of course for Gdl version 1.11. And let's see, go back to here, and I'm going to go into start with OpenSceneGraph. I'm just going to grab this folder, and I'm just going to bring it over and copy all the files into my documents directory. And that should give me a OpenSceneGraph 3-3.2.0 directory in my documents directory, which is what I want. While that's going on, I'm going to go back to my OSG directory, open up Virtual Plant Builder, and I'm going to grab this, and I'm just going to drop that in, and that'll work a lot quicker because it's a lot smaller file. And the result is I have an OpenSceneGraph -3.2 directory. This is like the root directory from all the other directories. It has the includes. It'll soon have a binary in there, which CMake will generate, or Microsoft will generate when we do the compile. We'll get into that later. And over to Virtual Planet Builder, the master has all the files in there that we need, including the configure file. In order for this thing to work, to make CMake work, we're going to be dependent on this configure file. This configure file is just basically a text file. It has all the instructions that, along with CMake lists and some of the other directories in here that CMake needs to compile everything. If you go into OpenSceneGraph, it also has a CMake list and a configure, and you will see when I set this thing up, and it'll be fairly easy to do. In fact, I can pull this over here, and you can actually see some of the, there we go, some of the instructions that CMake uses over here. And this will make it infinitely easy to create the proper make file that Visual Studio C++ needs to build stuff, as I will demonstrate. So I can go over to here. I can kill this guy here because we don't need him anymore, and I'll just minimize that because we'll go back to him later. In fact, let's kill this. We don't need him either. Let's go ahead and start CMake, and we'll start by compiling I'm going to make sure the catch is deleted so we can start with a clean slate. Okay, we're going to start by selecting the source of CMake, and when we do that, we'll do that and tell it also where to build the binaries, which will be basically the same directory. So I'll go here and go browse source, and we'll go dglen, which is where my directory is at. Go down to my documents, go down to OpenSceneGraph, and I'm just going to open it from there. That's going to bring me to the root directory where all the CMake lists are at. And then I'm going to go over here and just do a Control C and a Control V, and there I'm set. And I'm going to hit configure, and I already got this thing set up for Virtual Studio 10, but you have also the 64 and the IA64 in 11 and 12 and whatever. But we're going to compile this in 32-bit today because it's easy. And we hit this, And it's going to go and crank for a while. And it's going to come, and in the end, you're going to see a lot of red around here, a list of stuff, but they're all going to be in red. And that's because there's a lot of things that this thing will have not found. And there you go. And not a lot of this stuff you're initially going to need, but there's a lot of stuff that we can bum from the Gdl libraries, which I will now proceed to show you how to get. And like I say, everything here will show up as red because it's worried about everything. And that's not really necessary at this time, but I'm going to start by grabbing something I know we're going to need, and that is the Gdl libraries. And I'm going to say hit this, and I guess I've been I guess I've been here before, but basically I would go into dglen, my documents, go into Gdl Lib, and for the Gdl libraries I want to grab this file here. This is Gdl underscore I, and hit open, and that's taken care of. Now we also need to tell it where the include files are. And again, I'm going to go to dglen. I'm going to go into my documents, go to Gdl, and just hit include, and just hit OK. And that is taken care of. Now there's a few things that are in here that I'm just going to go ahead and take care of while I'm at it. We probably won't need it for Virtual Planet Builder, but for OpenSceneGraph, these are nice things to have. The life, put it to you this way, life will be a lot easier for you if you include this stuff. And before I go further, let me explain. OpenSceneGraph is dependent on plugins, and OpenSceneGraph doesn't need all the plugins that it's asking for all the issues that it's asking for here, but it's nice to include as many of them as you can. And later on, when you go out and find the libraries, or you install stuff in here that this program asks for, and not all of them are you're gonna need to they're not gonna need to install under Windows. Like, I don't know if Windows has FFmpeg. Probably does, but I don't have it here, so I'm not going to install it. For example, also OpenInventor. It's definitely not going to have some of these because some of these are very Linux specific, and some of them are just downright, well, nobody writes drivers for them anymore. Case in point is let's see where I can find them. Oh yeah, the Performer libraries. Multigen doesn't exist anymore, and Prestigious, who now owns the creator code, the creator program that creates or that creates some of this stuff no longer supports, not even that, and supports performers libraries. I don't think SGI does either. Probably more than accurate. SGI does not support these anymore. Moving right along. Let's go over here and do Gif Lib Library. And this is for GIF format. When we find out. Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Gdl does have the Gif library right there for you to use. We're going to take advantage of that. Include. Go into here. Pick my documents. Gdl. Include, and just to make sure there isn't one of the sub directories. No, it's not there. I'm just going to use include, and there you go. We just added GIF, so now we'll be able to open GIF files that are included in the models in OpenSceneGraph. And believe it or not, there is a few formats that do require that. Let's see, let's go over here. How about there's got to be a few of them. Let's go to advanced. Maybe that'll tell us. Ah, yeah. Helps you go to an advanced setting. We'll go find the JPEG library. And I know there's a JPEG here somewhere. Lib JPEG. Also find the appropriate include file. dglen. My documents. Gdl. Include. And even though it's open JPEG, which I'm not using, I'm just going to stick with include. And we'll move on to, let's see, there's like one or two others in here, and we're going to try to capture as much of it as we possibly can. How about Tiff? Tiff is very important. I'm sure Gdl has the Tiff library. Ah, surprise, surprise. Here's Tiff. And of course, we got to find the appropriate include file. So we'll go and look for my documents, Gdl include, and just make sure. No, I think it's like the others. It's also there. And we'll also do zlib. Zlib is a compression utility that is often used to compress files. We happen to have that under Gdl, which is it uses, so we're going to bum that too. Now these are available to us. We're foolish not to use them. Might as well. To do this, might as well do this right. My documents, Gdl include, and didn't they have no, so like the others, must be there. So I think we got enough. I know they're going to get complained about at least one of them, but we'll deal with that when it comes up, because nothing ever comes up 100%. I'll go ahead. Now we're going to go ahead and hit configure again, and it will go through and it'll check and say, okay, really should have the PNG libraries. And I knew this was going to pop up. It never pops up until you really ask for them. And PNG. And PNG format is an important format too, that is often used in models. Let's see if there's anything else that we could possibly utilize. I think we're gonna just satisfy the PNG format. I may go in there and look for the while I'm at it. Let's see. It's asking for the debug and the library release. I don't recall having any debug files for Gdl, so I'm just going to worry about PNG. There it is. And let's see, we need to include the include file. That makes a lot of sense. My documents, Gdl include. Nope. Must be in the root. So you should have those. And let's see if there's possibly anything else we can fulfill. Let's see. FBX I'd like to have, but I don't. Free type. If I recall, I think there was a free type in there. Free type library. Yeah, and I'm going to go over and include that. I'm going to include 239 over 241, 2411. I'm not too sure, but I think 239 worked better. And this will make, when you bring up text in OpenSceneGraph, this will just make life easier for it. Otherwise, you know, if it can't find the free type libraries, it goes to this very ugly looking font that it generates out of its own. And let's say no, I'm gonna go ahead and use free type because free type is there, and this is one of the few times when I have to go in and select the subdirectories for free type. I tell it specifically where it's at. And we'll do a configure. I'm just going to go back here and see what other goodies it's asking for. See, PKG, I don't think I have a thing for PKG. Qt, I haven't got Qt installed. Maybe someday I'll show you how to incorporate OpenSceneGraph in Qt with Qt. It makes life pretty easy. Found PNG, found version 1.35. Good. Configuring is done. I think we're ready. I'm going to go ahead and hit generate and see what complains. Oh, and by the way, one of the rules of CMake, the generate button will not activate unless you meet the minimum requirements that CMake needs to generate a make file. So if you struggle with this and figure out that why generate isn't working, is because you didn't include something and you got to find it. And it could be something relatively simple. And there's a few things in here that it did not find, like lib xm12 is missing. Well, we're not in Linux, we're not using X Windows, so we don't need xm. And curl, I guess we could include curl, but curl is another set of, I think it's actually called free curl, because curl is actually a set of conversion libraries. And I'm not too sure if we need curl for this experiment. I think it would be fine just dealing without curl for the time being. We may go back and I may do a thing on curl. But for now, everything here looks cool. And we can proceed to compile the libraries and the few necessary binary files that this thing will generate. This will generate OSG viewer, which we'll need to view the virtual planet builder models and just about any other model that you can display with OpenSceneGraph. OpenSceneGraph by its nature will open up a world of format of models, more than you'll ever possibly need. It's really quite a remarkable 3D visualization tool. It will also allow you to view things in 3Ds using various 3D schemes, including, I hear, Oculus Rift, which I don't have an Oculus handy, so I can't show you that, sadly. But now I think we can exit CMake, and we can start up our Microsoft Visual C++ session. We might have a few complaints because I deleted a few directories, but no, we're cool. So I'm going to go ahead and open a project, and since I build most of my stuff in my documents anyway, it instantly went to that directory. And so I'm going to go over to OpenSceneGraph, double click on that, and I'm going to go down, and I will instantly see a bunch of files that Microsoft recognizes off the top of the bat. And a lot of these are build files, but the file I'm looking for is referred to as in Microsoft lore is a solution file, Microsoft Visual Studio Solution, and it includes all this other stuff that you're going to need. And I will click on that and hit open, and it'll sit there and it will crank for 20 years in a fortnight before we can start a build. And it's preparing stuff. And then you look at the bottom over here, right about here, and whoops, and there's a few things down here that it's going to have to build and parse. So Microsoft knows how to handle each and every file. And we got to wait for that. We got to be patient and wait for that to happen. But here's all the build situations for all the plugins. You can see that OpenSceneGraph has a ton of programs, of what we call plugins. And these plugins, the sole purpose of it is it knows how to handle various formats. And you can see we got DXF, DW, .dss, config. There's JPEG. Some you know, a lot you don't. There's logo. There's LWO and LWS. And I think those are Microsoft formats or Maya formats. There's one here for 3D Studio Max at some point, if I can find it. There's TGA, TGZ, Tiff, which we created. There's X format, there's zip, STL, SHP, which is shapefile, which is very important, RGB, which is an old SGI image format, POV, which is the old POV format, and somewhere around here, oh, and of course, OpenSceneGraph. There's also depreciated OpenSceneGraph, depreciated OSG animation, OSGFX, some of these plugins for elements of OSG which have been depreciated, but you still have it here. And the serializer, there's a serialization process in place for OpenSceneGraph, and many of these replaced some of these depreciated formats, which is left in there for backwards compatibility. And And of course, the reason why OpenSceneGraph uses plugins because it's quite modular in its nature. That's the beauty of the beast. I think we're ready to compile. So we don't need to do any special stuff here to do compile. Oh, except one thing. And this is only if you don't have a debug set, which I don't, or you don't want to, or you want to avoid a lot of headaches with, in my case, Norton 360, and that is that is debug. For some reason, when you do debug, when you go down and compile the DB libraries, and they're here somewhere, I just don't see them. There is a thing called OSGDB right there. When you try to compile these libraries here in debug mode, Norton will go in and, oops, didn't mean to do that. Norton will go in and reject half of them as viruses and try to quarantine them. And that is not very good. So to avoid that for now, until either Norton cleans up their act or until I can get figure out a way to work around Norton, which I'm sure there is, but I just don't want to deal with that here now. I'm going to go ahead and compile this thing under release. And I'm going to compile this as Win32. The reason why I'm going to compile this under Win32 is Win32 will, OSG, will operate just as well under 32-bit as it will under 64-bit. And do you want to experiment with the 64-bit and hack at it, and Godspeed. But I'm gonna, for the purpose of the demo, I'm gonna stick with the 32-bit. And of course, now it's having to go back, since I put it into release. It's having to go back and scan for some includes because I'm working in release mode. And it'll take it a little while. And I think we're set. So I'm going to go ahead and go to All Build and click on Build. And the program will start. And this will go on for a while. While this thing was compiling, I went out and had a sandwich. Got handsomely dressed, went to Vegas, lost all my money, and came back, and here I am. So at least something good happened to the whole thing. I have 106 projects that I have succeeded to build. 0 has failed. Everything's up to speed, and nothing got skipped, which is the way you ought to be. So, for the time being, we're pretty much done with this program, at least as far as OpenSceneGraph is concerned. So let me find my mouse, and we can go over here and I'm just going to go here and hit exit. And then I'm going to open a command window. And since I built this in my documents directory, I'm going to go CD and I'm going to go documents and go / OpenSceneGraph 3.2 and bin and hit enter. Go dir. Yeah, looks like everything got built, including OSG viewer, which is I'm going to also test. Well, we could go and just hit, we can be dull and go OSG VR ION, also had a soda. Yeah, OpenSceneGraph Library 3.2.0. The real reason why I wanted to do the binaries is because one of the programs we're going to need is viewer WER. I think that's it. Yeah. And that really tells me that the thing is working right. And I guess I could cheat and show you how this thing has worked, but then you wouldn't hang around to the end, would you? So with that, this concludes the OSG portion of building the libraries. Now we'll get down to building the virtual planet builder, and since we've gone through most everything so far, it's going to be a heck of a lot quicker to do. So we might as well get down dirty and doing it. And we're going to start by opening CMake again, because we have to build another set of make files for the Visual Studio Express. And we'll double click on that, and of course it'll pop up to this stuff. And we don't need to deal with that stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and just go and eliminate that stuff. And well, at least try to delete the cache just to make sure everything's nice and clean. And go over and hit the browse source again. I'm going to go dglen to my documents, and then I'm going to go down to Visual Plant Builder Master, and hit OK. I'm going to go and copy, grab this, do a Control C, go down to where to build the binaries, do another Control C, Control V. Say yes, and we're all set generally. The only thing I want to do is hit the configure key, because we're starting off, and it's going to go ask me again what are we going to start off again. And of course, for this tutorial I'm using Virtual Studio 10, so hit select that and hit finish. And it will crank. And it's going to complain. You're going to get a big, fat, ugly error. And no, there is nothing wrong with your CMake. This is expected. It is kind of nice to see this, because then you see what's obviously wrong here. That's one of the things that's happened is it can't find where the OSG stuff is, because it's obvious. It's not obvious to it. And the quickest, easiest way to tell it where all the OSG directories are in the OSG dir, hit this, go dglen, go my documents, go OpenSceneGraph, and just click OK. And this ought to go over and tell the program where all of this stuff. And when I talk about all this, I'm talking about literally from here all the way down to here. And it will do it for all except a debug, because we did not compile a debug because we knew that Norton's going to complain. But we're going to go ahead and hit this anyway. And of course we're going to get an error again because we forgot to include the Gdl libraries. But hey, that's okay. We know where those are, right? Gdl library, haven't found it. Well, it remembered from the last time it was here, so went straight to the Gdl lib. That's where we looked beforehand. And lo and behold, there's Gdl I. We hit that. And of course it wants to know where the directory, where the include files are. So I'm going to go dglen, my documents, Gdl include, and that's all you need. Now, when you hit configure again, and we got no complaints. Shock and amazement. It's one of the few instances where in OpenSceneGraph where generally you're not going to get too many complaints. Maybe get some complaints in the beginning, but once it figures out where everything's at, it will not complain at all. So we can go ahead and do generate. And we're done. And it was pretty quick and to the point. And so we're done with this program, and we can move on to Microsoft Visual C++, which we'll click on again, and we'll say Open Project. And since we're in My Documents already, we can already go down to Virtual Plant Builder Master and go over, and we're looking for the Studio Solution file, this time for Virtual Plant Builder. And we found it, and we click on that, and it will go through and do some parsing stuff and figuring things out. And before we go too far, we might as well hit the switch over to release, which it will go back again, but it hates you for it, but that's okay. We waited too long the last time. So this didn't take as long as the OpenSceneGraph stuff did, but we got one other step we got to pull, and it involves around this thing saying VPB, which is Virtual Plant Builder. It is, in the end, what it is this is the settings for the this is for the DLL, the Virtual Plant Builder DLL, which all the other programs, all the map stuff is built under and works off these libraries. And there's a slight issue in Microsoft's compiler, which under Virtual Plant Builder, the only way you can fix it is to go under, to right click on this VPB branch, go down to the properties for that project, and it says this is a VP, it's a DLL, as it should. Go over to the linker, and into general, and what you're going to have to do is go over here to force file output. Click on that. Click on the little arrow that points down that gives you a list of stuff to do. And what you need to do is on the second line down, there's a setting called multiply defined symbol only, and force multiple. Somewhere in here, Microsoft thinks there's a multiply defined class that for some reason it can't handle, and the only workaround for that, even though I've heard that there's been some fixes, though I haven't actually seen it, is to go under here and hit this, and then hit apply. And this basically tells the compiler, yeah, we know this, but deal with it anyway. Ignore this potential fault, and then you hit OK. And then when you try to compile this, it will complain to you, but that's okay, life is good. And of course we're on release, we're doing 32-bit. We should be good. And even though this will take a little bit, I'm going to keep this thing going while it builds, because it isn't going to take long. Now we're building some of the other stuff, including OSG Dem, which we will be using later, and you can see we've successfully built 7 projects, which is all we had. 0 have failed, 0 is up to date because we didn't change anything, and we didn't skip a thing, which is very good because we don't need to skip anything. And the result is that we built about 4 executable files. VP size, VP B catch, pardon me, this is VP B size, VP B master, which if you go into the advanced class you can understand how that works. And then finally there's the little workhorse of this whole thing, and often maligned and ignored, and but definitely the program that we're really shooting for here, and that's OSG DEM. Now we'll go into how these work in a later in the next tutorial, but I'll summarize some of this stuff. But when we go to the next tutorial specifically, we will be concentrating on this guy. But for now, let's just get him into a place that we could get him to work. So we're done with Visual Studio, so we can exit it. Bye. next thing we'll do is we'll open a window. And let's see. I'm going to put everything that we built so far, I'm going to leave in this directory here. Because here we got pretty much all the OSG stuff, OpenSceneGraph stuff, and it works, including the plugins. These are all the plugins. Majority of the program, if you're not building the example files, is building the plugins and these few DLLs and binaries, which makes the program run. And what we're going to do is, in addition to having these programs here, we're going to add one more, or pardon me, we're going to add 4 more in a DLL, and that's going to be the virtual planet builder stuff. And that's, of course, located right here. And it's located in 2 areas, and I'm sure there's a very logical reason of what they did and why, but nobody's explained it to me, so I'll just leave it to you to ask the great mystery of why they put things the way they did. Basically, the executables are right here, and of course they're under release, and this is them, including some of the other files that it built along the way to, link stuff and such, which we will not use. So the first thing we're worried about is this file. I hit a control button and select this file, and this file. And I'm going to do a right click and I'm going to do copy. And then I'm going to go over back to my documents, to my OpenSceneGraph, to my bin directory, and then I'm going to go just anywhere in the screen, just go paste. And it's pasted those files in. And that's perfectly fine with me. So, moving right along, I will go back to my virtual plant builder master, and then I'll go over to lib, and then I'll go over to, of course, to release, and what I'm looking for here, of course, is the DLL. Now, this is the library. If you wanted to compile stuff using the DLL, that's why this thing is here. But we're not worried about that right now. I'm just going to grab this and do a copy. Do a right click and copy. Go back to my OpenSceneGraph, my binary, and then I'm going to go over and do a paste. And there's my virtual plant builder stuff. And now, if I don't rename it, and now I got everything in one nice homogeneous location. So the virtual plant builder stuff will know where all the DLLs are at for it to use that stuff, and OSGDEM, which is what we're going to use in this program, will know where the virtual plant builder DLL is at, and everybody knows where the plugins are at. Now hopefully you've made the Gdl directories visibly aware of where all the Gdl stuff is, globally aware where all the Gdl stuff is. So when you open a command prompt window, you'll know where this stuff's at. But one of the things that you're going to do here, well, I'll put it to you this way. Here you got a choice. You could either take this whole directory, this bin directory, as a unit, copy it, and put it into some place, either under the programs files or whatever, and it'd probably be under the programs, 86 directory probably, and just plop them there and be happy. But irregardless of what you do, one of the things that you're going to have to make sure that you do, and this is probably the reason why in this demo I just left everything in the binary, is you're going to have to make sure that for the system to see everything, because when you go to build your virtual plant builder terrain, you don't want to do it in this directory. You want to do it in another directory. And in order for the command prompt to be able to see where all this stuff is at, you're going to basically have to tell it. And basically what I do is I click this little folder here. It automatically selects all this material here. I go copy, because that's what I'm going to do it here. And this is about the only scary system stuff that I'm going to have you do in this whole tutorial. We're going to go over to here and we're going to go to control panel. I think it's control panel. Oh, I take it back, it's computer. You go properties. And you're going to see this very nice little window, and it says, yes, this is a Sony computer, it's my laptop. And we're going to go over to advanced settings. It's going to bring up another window. Now hopefully when you go to do this, that you're the lone user, chances are you do have system access to everything. If you didn't realize that before, be scared, because you do have access to everything. I'm going to go over here, go down to path, hit edit, and at the very end you want to type a semicolon and then do a control C. And what that will do, control C. Oops, something didn't work out right. Copy. Paste. Ah, there it went. And then you want to hit OK. Now, I'm not going to hit OK because, unbeknownst to you, I have done this thing long before. And if you look way down here, you can see that I've already done this down here. So I don't need to add this again. But normally you would hit OK. And when you hit OK, so I'll hit cancel. You can hit OK here. And this will probably apply. You can hit apply and hit OK. And that's the scariest thing that you're going to have to do. and the whole thing. We didn't edit a registry. Well, we sort of did, but basically we just added this directory to the path. Now if you want to go over and put this in its own little directory, then you want to go over, and once you get into the directory that you want, you can, oops, you can hit this, and you've got to be careful when you hit it, because if you don't, you're going to get this shortcut, which you don't want. Let's go ahead and delete that. Yes. But you just want to click this once, go ahead and do copy, and then make sure you put it in your path. But that's the scariest thing in this whole project that you're going to have to do. It could potentially come back and bite you. But I think we'll be fine. So we're going to test this out. And I'm just going to go in and test this out. And since, I already showed you how to do the CD documents, OpenSceneGraph, oops, bin routine, and you can do a dir, and it's there. In fact, you can go and do OSG DEM / HELP, and you get a nice long help. But it works. But hey, as I said before, you don't want to run the program from this. You want to run this program from somewhere else. And that somewhere else is where you're going to actually build your terrain. As we'll go into it, and I have some really cool slides, and we can follow those slides and see where the terrain goes. But now I can go into here, I can do OSG and hopefully, yeah. Oh, it didn't work because I misspelled it probably. I can do viewer. I know how to spell viewer, and that works. And then I can go OSG DEM, and I always suggest giving it a command of some kind. Don't try to run it. It won't understand, without some sort of command line to it. It'll freak at you and say, "What are you doing?" And I'm not too sure. I think you can do VER and version. Yep. And we got, okay, it's version 0.9.11, which is the release. Yeah, that's the proper release. So Virtual Planet Builder is running. It's running properly in your Windows box. And in the next tutorial, which we will get into because we've already gotten pretty lengthy here, I will go into actually how to use this newfound tool that you have, and you can build some cool databases. And before I leave, I will show you what you will be building. So go to Documents, just as soon as I find it. All my current map projects I always put in map data. I give it a thing. I'm gonna go and let's immortalize Hemet, California. Go into the terrain directory. That's where I have everything built. And I'm going to go in and say OSG. Oops, OSG. IEWER. Emmet. IVE. IVE is the format that this thing tends to build under. Bingo. And after the end of the second tutorial, you'll be able to do something like this. So, till the next time, I'll just leave this up here to whet your appetite.